Bisexual people of Reddit, what would you say is the main difference between dating women and men? There's a few differences that I've noticed at least in my experiences. Women, whenever I'm with women, either romantically or just hooking up, it's always softer and more sensual. The dates are more relaxed and the sex lasts longer, and is seemingly softer. They take their time to get you to your peak and will always take care of you after the act is over. Men, more excitement definitely. Dates can range from getting dinner to going out, and doing random activities. I don't have to worry as much about what I'm doing either, as the ones I've encountered have been more go-with-the-flow types. When it comes to sex with men, it's always slightly faster, less emphasis on foreplay depending on who I'm with. It's always rougher too, which isn't a bad thing. There's not as much aftercare after the sex unless you're dating them. I have fun with both men and women despite the differences that I've noticed between the two. It's always something different depending on who you're with. Never truly a bad thing. ETA, forgot to add that I'm a woman lol, for the few who wanted to know. Bi man here. One thing I've noticed is how heteronormativity plays into relationships with women. There are more unspoken expectations or power dynamics that exist even though we're aware of them. Like, I tend to be more of the leading partner during sex. I was the one to ask her out, 8/10 times the big spoon, and just a bunch of other random courtship details between men and women. Unspoken sexual progression. With men, it feels like all the norms are out the window. It feels like there's space to make the relationship work however you want because the unspoken dynamics aren't as present. There's often a lot more communication around sex, and what expectations are. There's a greater emphasis on foreplay, which I'm bringing more into my relationships with women even though there's still such an emphasis on PV sex. The similarities are that I can't flirt for shit with either, and get really uncomfortable when I have a crush. I like the process of getting to know who I'm dating, and understanding who they are. The excitement and affection feel very similar. Those are just a few things that immediately come to mind, though I'm sure I could write a dissertation if I worked on it. Added to add, I think some of those heterodynamics I experience less of when I date queer women because they've more likely started to unpack that on their own already. I'm a woman. In general, when I'm around/interacting with other women, even just friends/acquaintances, I automatically take on a more dominant and masculine energy. I even notice I tend to use a deeper, more monotone voice with women versus men. That's very unintentional. Men is opposite. I always feel more submissive energy-wise, like I allow them to take lead sexually. Personally, I like this more. It's less work for me mentally and emotionally to not be the dominant presence, although I do feel like I'm more dominant and assertive in nature. I don't know if any of that made any sense. I'm a bi woman, and have more experience with men, but have dated some women. My experiences with women, I could open up about a bad day without being Debbie Downer. If I did this with men, I was dumping on them. My now spouse is a man, and is not like this, but many men are women. I hate to say this, as I think it sounds a little misogynistic, but I found it to be true. There was a lot more game playing going on than with men. Lots of playing hard to get, and then getting upset when I basically shrugged, figured they weren't into me, and gave up. Many women want to be chased. Certainly not all, but I had it happen a couple times, and it was exhausting. Men were much more straightforward. Women tended to be better at communicating, or at least communicating more frequently, but also tended to overanalyze every little detail. I didn't text back as quickly as I normally did. Was I angry? Losing interest? I might have just had a long meeting at work. Men don't typically tend to do that, but I did run into a couple that did. Women tended to be better hygienically. I broke it off with a guy for many reasons, but one being that he wasn't the most hygienic downstairs. It wasn't lack of bathing or anything, just more lack or respect for me, and what he wanted me to do. I never was with a woman who didn't freshen that area up. A quick wipe with water is all that's needed before intimacy. Edit, a word, to clarify that I am female. Women are easier to connect to emotionally, men are easier to connect to sexually. I don't like that it is that way. I'd love to have better sex with women, and more intimacy, love with men. But that's been my experience so far. ETA, I'm not saying my ex-GFS were bad and better. My ex-BFS didn't love me, they did, and they were great. Just saying that, as a woman, it's easier for me to get into deep trust and emotional connection with another woman, and it's easier, and faster, to get into the hot sex stuff with a man. I imagine this is a socialization issue. They're both wonderful, though. Women are more neurotic, and men are more emotionally unavailable. Dating women tends to make me feel like I'm not good enough, while dating men tends to make me feel alone and unheard. Bi woman here. Pros of being with a man: I don't get judged for it, I feel more protected. We can have kids. Pros of being with a woman: we relate to each other more, we don't have to use protection, we can share more things, like clothes, and makeup, and honestly just being attracted to a man versus a woman is very different, for me at least. Dating girls has always been an entire day and evening starting very early in the morning. Men is usually 2/3 hours, meal, and or drinks and sometimes back to theirs after, but not a full date for an entire day. I've dated many men, and this has always been the case. Women are very hard to please in terms of what their tastes are, and what they expect you to have compared to men. For example, on a dating site, men will often try and keep the conversation going if they find me attractive. Women will give up as soon as they see something that doesn't match them. Men pretty much are easy to seduce, and get interested as long as I'm hot, which 9/10 have found me to be, and I will always get sex. Women only wanted sex on the terms I had things about me they liked. Being physically attracted wasn't enough. In my experience, there's less difference than you might think. I'm a typically masculine sort of guy, so, regardless of gender/sex, I'm more attracted to feminine qualities in the people I date. What I noticed is, both men and women want to be chased. They both like attention, and affection, and sex in pretty much the same amounts initially. I don't really agree with women being more sensual, or more emotionally available, or more interested in foreplay. I've dated plenty of boys who will kiss and touch all day, and they'll share their feelings openly. And I'd also say, regardless of gender, heteronormative power dynamics still exist in implicit and explicit ways. I had a stay-at-home boyfriend for 2 years. He went to school and looked after the house. I worked. We were both happy. I've found guys are more fun to date, and appear more willing to have casual sex, but they fall just as hard as a woman does when they meet someone they really like. The only two really noticeable differences I'd say is directness, and ability to resolve conflict. I've found men are more direct, and as a result they're way better at dealing with conflict. They might blow up or snap, but then it's basically over, and forgotten about. Women tend to simmer and hold grudges. The stuff about women being good communicators is exaggerated, I think. Yes, they're better at communicating feelings, and acknowledging others' feelings, but they're also very capable of emotional manipulation. Men might struggle to say what they mean sometimes, but there's rarely any subtext. I don't have anything to add, but would like to thank everyone here having a civil conversation. When someone thinks something may be offensive or taken incorrectly, you all respectfully correct the error. I no longer see people communicate like this about easy subjects, let alone something with so much potential emotion. Thank you for being good people. You are restoring my hope in the kindness of humanity. I think it's interesting how one community can be so exposed, open, and real, while others here embody the total opposite. Anyway, thank you. My relationship with the women I dated was always more intimate, and generally I felt better/safer around them, and their friends. But men were always generally more fun to be with. I had to worry way less if my jokes/opinions would hurt them or something. With that being said, I would rather be with a woman than a man, since an intimate, trusty relationship means everything to me. Dating a girl for me feels like a more level playing field. I feel like we can get each other on a whole other level. We both have girly bits, periods, we relate to each other's struggles more easily, and I know my way around, so I can always be sure I can please her, or at least know exactly what she's talking about if she corrects me. With men, the connection is definitely still there, it's just different. Don't get me wrong, men are very much capable of sharing the weight of your struggles, they can please you if you teach them how, they are great partners, but it's not as automatic or natural as my connection to women. I find that it takes longer for me to connect with men than women, but the connection I do have with my boyfriend now is deeper than I've ever had with anyone before. Moral of the story, both are great, they both have strengths and weaknesses, but they are different. So, I think being a man, being with men, it's easier to put my guard down, and be more myself. I don't have to always be the man. I can be vulnerable sometimes. If I'm with a woman, I can never be vulnerable because I feel like I have to be the strong one. By woman here, casual sex with women is great. You can go out for brunch the next day, and just be friends. In my experience, casual sex with a man is impossible. They either treat you like garbage right after, I assume due to not wanting you to catch feelings, or they get weird because they have caught feelings, and don't know how to act. Men are great. They just want 3 things: to get off, to chill out, and to obsess over hobby together. Women are more complicated. You have to make them feel a certain way in certain moments by doing and behaving in certain ways. They want you to be in control, but not too much control that they feel they don't have a say. Not doing something is itself a thing to them. It's much more involved. However, they become more attached than men, and you become much more of a team if you do it right. TLDR, women are more work for better payoff. Men are less work but more casual. Bye guy here. These are all gross generalizations, but which I've found to be generally very accurate. Wish it wasn't so. Advantages of dating a man. Because there's less of a prescribed template for relationship dynamics between two men, there's the inherent sense by default that you get to set things up in a way that works for you, both sexually, for example open relationship usually on the table without a tough conversation, sexual roles, etc., and just in life, for example no assumptions about who does the laundry, who cleans, who captures a spider, and takes it outside. Can genuinely date your best friend. I know a lot of straight couples say they feel like they're dating their best friend, but when I look at my straight friends, I'd aver very few would volunteer to spend that much time with their partner if they weren't boning. No ticking biological clock in the picture. Can do athletic/outdoor activities with a partner you know can keep up. Obviously some women are extremely capable, and some men aren't, but true more often with men in my experience. Direct communication style is usually the default. No game playing. Advantages of dating a woman. Spontaneous sex more feasible. Just the way it is. More self-awareness of wants and feelings. Honestly, couldn't think of anything else. Benefits with women are mostly sex-related I suppose, have generally found men, especially other bi men, easier to date. Bi woman here. Women, the sex is amazing, and go on forever. Women don't assume you've come, they know better, and if you tell it feels great but your hormones aren't cooperating for the they get without ego issues. You can have FWB sex, and be actual friends, and do things together that aren't leading to sex. Communication is typically easy, and they're not judgy about your sexual past. When you do get serious, they ask lots of questions, and you cover everything from extended family to adoption to insemination to dogs v cats in one night, lol. And they never, ever, lick on your left labia for 3 minutes, and ask if you've come. Men, stubble is hot. Being picked up is hot. Having to grit your teeth because men of average intelligence think they're brilliant, and want to explain that your lack of interest in video games is indicative of your lowered competitiveness due to estrogen when it's because you prefer to read is not hot. Men often talk about how good they are in bed. That's a bad sign, because they assume every clit trick works with every woman. Bi women, and lesbians knows that our clits aren't even shaped the same, much less respond the same. However, when a man is actually good in bed, it's a revelation. Men rarely give the silent treatment, but they're also difficult to communicate with on an abstract level. That's my very limited experience of 3 women, and 2 men. In my own experience, the main difference is that I don't have to teach women about emotions, and needs a woman has in a relationship, and I spend less time pleading to have those emotions, and needs met. Everything else varies, but even my best boyfriend had to be told things that my girlfriends just already knew, and would ask me if it was something I wanted, since they also understood women are not a monolith. Even when I do have to be like, hey, we're lacking in, and it's making me feel, other blank, can we do something about it? With a girlfriend, it's never as much of a goddamn fight as it is with a boyfriend. For example, when I told my most recent ex-boyfriend he was making me feel unloved, and undesirable because he never invited me out, and didn't even invite me over, it turned into a whole fight about how he shouldn't have to be in charge of initiating, and deciding everything, he wasn't, and how it was so inconvenient for him. I would drive 40+ men to see him, he didn't want to have to drive 20 minutes to meet somewhere in the middle for dinners together to make it easier for me, and how I was just too needy. I saw him maybe twice a month at that point, and we only lived 40 minutes away from each other, shorter than my drive to work each day. I have never had to have a conversation/argument like that with my girlfriend/fiancé, and when the topic came up with ex-girlfriends, instead of arguing with me, they simply promised to make more time for me. I avoid differences by putting myself on clear display, and make sure they know, yeah, I'm fucked up from past, and current struggles, and I have high standards BC of that. So they know exactly what they are getting if they ever decide to make a move. I give a lot even in friendships, so I expect to get that same energy back. If they won't reciprocate that appreciation and care, then they just aren't the one for me. I do however see men being a lot more interested in my trinkets though, NGL, they love my garba finds. Edit, forgot to specify I'm a bisexual woman. Female bisexual here. In relationships, I noticed I can have longer and deeper conversations with women. It just flows more easily. Men tend to switch topics quicker, making it more difficult to get deeper into that topic. Men understand, but women understand. Hygiene is also a big difference. I notice 9/10 women go the extra mile on dates to make themselves look and smell great, whereas men, maybe 3/10. Men often smell of sweat or have that shirt on the floor still looks good, I'm putting it on again for my date scent. In bed, it's so much more difficult to get women off. I think I slept with 15 women, and at least 5 of them had been sexually abused at some point in their lives. The trauma clearly was still taking its toll on them. They often had troubles climaxing. I don't deserve your time, I'm taking too long, I don't deserve to come, etc. I've been with twice as many men, and none of them had troubles climaxing, ever. It seems as if men can easily get outside their heads, whereas women tend to worry and feel overall insecure in bed. I feel sorry for them. Sex with men is a lot easier. By woman. My case is a bit different because although I'm a woman, I like the feminine qualities in people, so I normally just date women, or men who are very soft and caring. And if I date the same sex, I'm the more dominant one. The heteronormative dynamic is defo still there, regardless of the gender of the person that I date. It feels like I switch roles depends on the person, haha. If I date girls, I'm more protective, and I take initiative, sometimes I chase them, whereas if I date guys, I let them. In terms of physical interaction, and all, girls are softer, and you will have to do more. With guys, I can sit back more. But I enjoy both ways. The breakups feel very painful for both. The similarities are, I guess, I take care of them whether they're male or female. And it's always 50-50 in dates, but guys usually want to pay in the first dates. I think being bi is awesome. It's taught me how to deal with both genders, and help me understand my partners, and not let gender norms impact us. So I've almost always had good relationships with people. I love it.